Hi, this is Heather Jerome from heatherjerome.com and from the Sonatas and Partitas.com. This video is a part 3 tutorial for the Sarabande from the first violin partita in B minor, BWV 1002. Now in part 1 we discussed the historical provenance of the Sarabande. We talked a little bit about the rhythmical structure of the dance itself. In part 2 we started looking at this particular Sarabande and discussed things like Hemiola and the rhythm and the Phrygian cadence. And in this video, I'd like to just keep on the discussion about Hemiola and have a look at some of the real magical moments in this section and some of the things that are maybe underneath, like this apparent simplicity that, you know, we can all learn from. But just to start off, I'd like to just revisit this idea of Hemiola, because I think especially at this upcoming cadence is actually very important. So just playing the bass line alone, we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. And now here's the Hemiola. 1, 2, 3, 1. And that takes us to this E minor cadence, which is really, if you think of it, it's kind of the focal point of the Sarabande, of this Sarabande. You play the first part, you get to the repeat, you go back to the beginning, and then you play through and you land on this E minor cadence with the wonderful Hemiola, and then the music actually stops. Now I'd like to back up one more little bit before going on ahead. So here we have, there's a very unusual chord coming up. Here. That chord. What's unusual about it is there's a third between the bass and tenor. It's kind of close, not that unusual, does happen. But then there's a gap of a ninth between the tenor and alto. And really what would have been much more normal would have been for Bach to do this, just to keep up with parallel thirds. And in the double, that is actually what he does. What some violinists do, and actually what a lot of guitarists do, is they invert the interval in their notes and make that chord. It's not unplayable on the violin. It's a little bit awkward. There are a lot of, I think, more awkward chords than that for the violin in the sonatas and partitas. I think if Bach would have wanted to do it, he could have done it. I just really don't think it sounds like Bach to have that sound. I do think if you don't want to play Bach's actual notes, to go with what he chose himself in the double. But now moving on, let's just take it from the E minor cadence. The way I look at it is basically everything that happened until the E minor cadence was taking us to there, and everything that's going to happen after that is going to be taking us to the end, back home, via the dominant. And so the first thing I'd like to look at is, let's go back and look at the rhythmic structure of the Sarabande, where he has 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. This high B here that just comes and sort of soars out above the rhythm is actually, even though it's on the downbeat, within that rhythmic phrasing, it is on a weaker part. Now, if you missed the first two tutorials, I described the rhythmic structure of the French Sarabande, where it's in 2-bar segments, and the accentuation goes like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3 again. And so here, even though that high B arrives on the downbeat, it is at a metrically weaker place. And I think this is just one of these like exquisite, nuanced moments in the Sarabande. You know, a lesser composer probably would have done this. That's kind of what's like underneath that. You know, the G would be preparing for that G dissonance that resolves there. But Bach does this. So you want to be aware of it, but you also don't want to give it like this big, strong rhythmical or volume accent. And something else that I read, this was by Roger North, who also was a contemporary of Bach's, I think. he spoke about when a musician, a singer, or an instrumentalist plays high notes, they should play more quietly, not louder. And when I read that, I really wondered why. It's not what we do now. Now our training is all like project. But their training was more color and nuance. But why wouldn't you want to play louder when you go higher up? I think it's because, think of their performing situations compared to ours. When we perform, we're on a stage in a really big hall. The people in the front row are below us, and they're quite a ways away from us. But there, they were all on the same floor, and, you know, they were just a few feet away from each other. And if you have somebody wailing away on a high note right in your ear, it's not going to be very pleasant. So the music is all written with this in mind, and I just think this moment is just one of these, you know, real subtle strokes of genius in the Sarabande. So I wanted to point that out. And so now going ahead, let's see what's next here. Here. All right, what is this chord? If we were all campfire guitarists having a little bonfire one night, telling each other what chords to play, we would call this a G major 7 chord. So a G major 7 chord typically has the notes G, B, D, and F sharp. So why does Bach have G, G, B, F sharp, not G, D, B, F sharp? Would have been easier on the violin. He would have had 2 open strings to play. So this kind of points out one of the problematic ways of looking at Baroque music with our modern language. Because Bach didn't have chord names like that. He didn't have like a root, an inversion. This is a root position, G major 7 chord. What Bach has here in the Sarabande is he has a bass line that moves by step towards a Phrygian cadence. It goes, and above this, he has a 7/6 suspension. But again, why doesn't he have the 5th above the root? Well, we're heading towards F sharp. The G is the 2nd scale degree. It would normally want a 6 and a 3rd. So here's the 3rd, and here's the 6th. And the 6th is prepared as a consonant, repeated as a dissonant 7th, and resolved. Now, it does work to kind of translate this around to our system of chords and inversions. And the thing is, if we were going to do that, this would not be a G major 7 chord. It would actually be an E minor chord in first inversion, which is how we relate to these 2 chords as we put them in first inversion. So going on, we have a nice Phrygian cadence. We've arrived at F sharp. And I think the notable thing about here is that this is the only cadence in the Sarabande that isn't led up to with the Hemiola. And the thing is about this cadence is that we haven't been like heading towards F sharp, and here we are, and now we're arriving at F sharp, and it's a nice big strong landing. It's actually, we're passing through F sharp to give us a signal that that is just around the corner. And, you know, the job of this F sharp is to kind of point the way home. So here we are here. Now let's see, how does Bach get home after this F sharp? Well, he does it very simply. He has a little idea, it's a 2-bar long idea, and he just repeats it up a step 3 times until the cadence. But Bach, being Bach, will never repeat something exactly. So let's see how he varies his idea. So he has this chord, and then he repeats it varied up a step. And then he repeats it again up a step. But what are these chords? These chords with a 6 and a 4th above the bass. That is extremely unusual. Bach has not done that anywhere else in the whole book of Sonatas and Partitas. And in fact, I can't think of any other places that he's done it, although he may have. But what would be more normal to do, and if you see something unusual, a good question to ask yourself is, well, why didn't he do it the usual way? And a good way to find the answer is to actually try it the usual way and see what problem you run into. And so the usual way would have been to invert those notes and play 6/3 chords. And in fact, in the first section, Bach does have those 6/3 chords that lead to the Hemiola, that lead to the cadence. It's very common. It's a carryover from the old full bourdon techniques. And here, if you just invert those voices, that's what you would have gotten. It would have led to the Hemiola and to the final cadence. But the thing is, on the violin, you can't do that, because he would have had to skip a string between the bottom note and the upper two notes. And on the guitar, we can easily skip a string. But on the violin, the bow has to play on adjacent strings. So again, we see here that Bach has run into a challenge. And as is for just about all these violinistic challenges that he runs into in the sonatas and partitas, his solution makes the piece even more ingenious than it would have been without the challenge. And the thing here is that if you look at his bass line, it starts, and then he can still repeat it up a step. 1, 2. There's the Hemiola again. So I hope you found this helpful. As always, let us know what you think at sonatasandpartitas.com. And if you'd like to be notified when new videos come out, just subscribe to our channel and turn on your notifications.